We have some updates to the Pittsburgh Steelers draft strategy for the 2025 NFL Draft, a player they're newly interested in and a player they're apparently no longer interested in after conflicting reports were released regarding Jalen Milroe, a quarterback that we made a video about a couple videos ago, talking about the Steelers having a lot of interest in the star Alabama quarterback. But now the reports say they are no longer interested in Jalen Milroe, so we're going to dive into those rumors a little bit later in the video. But first, we have to talk about Will Johnson, cornerback from Michigan, a possible draft choice for the Steelers in the first round, someone they're truly looking at getting. Before we get into that, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Steelers Digest, we got the latest Pittsburgh Steelers news, updates, rumors, and analysis. As the offseason rolls on, the Steelers are going to be very active in free agency and the draft process to try to rebuild this team after missing the second round of the playoffs yet again, falling in the first round to the Baltimore Ravens. Another first round exit, which means another roster shuffle this offseason to try to get it right under Mike Tomlin. Let's jump into Will Johnson because we want to address the cornerback position this offseason, whether it's in the draft or free agency. My preference would be let's do it in the draft. If we can get a guy to fall to us at any of our draft picks, I would love for it to be Will Johnson in the first round. At one point, he was a projected top 5 pick, at the worst, top 10, top 15. But now we're talking about Will Johnson possibly falling to the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21. Could you imagine stealing this guy with a late first round pick? I don't think they would even have to trade up to get him based on recent reports about his draft stock. And a lot of that has to do with an injury that he suffered last year. So we're going to talk about that here in just a second. But it would be a true draft day steal if the Pittsburgh Steelers could get Will Johnson and pair him opposite of Joey Porter Jr. That would be a pretty good cornerback duo in Pittsburgh if they could make that happen. The Steelers have their sights set on this draft class, and Will Johnson, one of the top guys on their draft board. Pick number 21 is up for debate. If Johnson's there, I don't think they pass on a guy like Will Johnson. Will he fall to 21? Now, that's a big question mark. But if he does, I don't think the Steelers are going to let him go much further than that. Picking a player, obviously important. You got to look at positions of need. We're looking at wide receivers right now at the number 21 pick. We're looking at cornerbacks, of course, at the 21 pick. And people are saying we should look at quarterback instead. But I don't think we should take a quarterback in the first round. I think corner or wide receiver makes a ton of sense here. And if we can't get, Emeka, Buka, Luther Burden, I think Will Johnson might actually be a better pick than either of those guys if for some reason he does fall to 21. It is the most needed position for the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you watch the way they played down the stretch last year, the secondary was in shambles. And the main problem, cornerback. Joey Porter Jr. continuing to develop, continuing to get better as time goes on, but he's taken too many penalties. His discipline is just not quite there yet. His maturity level still increasing as time goes on, but he needs someone on the other side. Otherwise, he's going to be forced to play against the other team's number one receiver every single time. And sometimes that's a tough test for Joey Porter Jr., the young corner that's just trying to get his feet under him here at the NFL level, changing speeds from Big Ten football at Penn State. And now another Big Ten corner, Will Johnson. Could he fall? The latest mock draft has the Steelers getting Will Johnson, defensive back out of Michigan. Could you imagine? That'd be awesome. Since 2014, NFL.com has graded prospects on a 5.6 to 8.0 scale with no grade also an option. Johnson holds a 6.7 grade, which translates to year one starter. And if you watch Will Johnson in Michigan, you know he's absolutely a year one starter. What he did with the Michigan Wolverines, I mean, he was a big reason why they won the national championship. He picked off Michael Penix Jr. It was his 4th of the season when they were in the second half of the national championship game. I mean, that defense for Michigan, when they did win the Natty, Will Johnson, probably the best player on that defense. And he is probably one of the best corners in this draft class, if not the best corner. So if for some reason he falls to 21, the Steelers absolutely cannot pass on Will Johnson. The reason why he might fall, and we're to this point now in the article, Johnson suffered a foot injury, which forced him to miss much of the 2024 season. And in his 6 games, he got 2 interceptions and returned both of them for touchdowns. So this guy, an electric player that can literally flip the game at any point in time. 6'2", good measurements, 202 pounds, the build and talent to play cornerback in the NFL. So if the Steelers can get Johnson at pick number 21, their defensive back room will look a lot fuller than it does right now. You look at what we have now. Joey Porter Jr., obviously solid player, but we have Corey Trice, who I'm not 100% sold on. and then Beanie Bishop, who, can do safety, corner, whatever. He's a little undersized. I think you almost have to have two corners ahead of Beanie Bishop in order to really have a successful defense, specifically the defensive back position. If Beanie Bishop's one of your top two corners, that's a serious problem. So I do think they need to look at corner, whether it's the draft or free agency. I think Will Johnson would be a perfect fit for the Steelers. I really do. If they could get Will Johnson, man, I'm telling you, that flips this defense upside down, because that has been our main position of need for quite some time. Joey Porter Jr. is fine, but we need another corner to pair with him, and Will Johnson would be the perfect guy. So as soon as I saw these rumors, I had to hop on it, guys. Will Johnson, I'd be really happy if we could get that dude. Anyways, a lot of teams are interested in him, but not a lot of teams may be interested in Jalen Milroe. We have conflicting reports on Milroe. The last time that I read about Jalen Milroe was that the Steelers were loving this guy, think he could be a franchise quarterback. And now the reports say they might not even be interested in drafting Jalen Milroe, because they don't think that he's going to be available in the second round, and they're not willing to use a first-round pick on Milroe. So the initial report was, the Steelers view him as a franchise quarterback. Let's see if they draft him with the 21st pick. Heck no, we're not drafting him with the 21st pick. If we're not getting a receiver, we're getting Will Johnson or somebody else that falls to 21. We are not drafting a quarterback at 21. We have no need to do that. Fields is still the favorite to be the starter. Jalen Milroe has been heavily rumored to be the Steelers' next franchise quarterback. All these reports linking him to the Steelers, talking about comps to Jalen Hurts, and I don't buy it. At first I bought it, now I'm not buying it anymore, because we're seeing new reports come out that the Steelers aren't even really interested in drafting him. So the Steelers are reviewing all their options, of course, especially quarterback, leading into the 2025 NFL draft. But one thing that doesn't seem to be on the table right now is Jalen Milroe. Steelers spent the week at the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama, and walked away with a clear favorite on offense. However, that player doesn't play quarterback. And with their second interest being wide receiver and third being running back, it doesn't seem likely that the Steelers are interested in drafting one of these QB prospects that are available that early in the draft, at least. So then we look at this report and this tweet from the Athletics' Mike DeFabo, and he talks about hearing the pretty much opposite of Andrew Filipponi, who originally reported that the Steelers did want Jalen Milroe. The reports now are believed to be that Jalen Milroe is not being drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, because he probably won't be available at their pick, and they're not comfortable taking that kind of risk on a quarterback like Milroe that has so many things that he has to work out at the NFL level. So much development is needed for Jalen Milroe to be successful in the NFL, and the Steelers are just simply not willing to take that risk on a guy like Milroe. He does have a ton of upside, but he's more risk than he is reward. So the safer option would be to draft one of these talented wide receivers in a very deep class of wide receivers, or to get a cornerback. If Morrison's available, will he be a first-round pick out of Notre Dame? I'm not 100% sure. I think he's more of a second-round pick. Whereas Will Johnson, if he's available at 21, you got to pull the trigger. You absolutely have to pull the trigger. This has been Steelers Digest. My name is Remington Kuhn. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. We're going to continue to provide the latest updates, draft and free agency related, throughout the offseason pertaining to your Pittsburgh Steelers. So Steelers Nation, subscribe to the channel, and we'll keep you up to date. Will Johnson, a target for the Steelers. Jalen Milroe, not so much. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on the next episode of Steelers Digest.